Throughout this series, we have used The Reader of the Empress as our case study, a literary historical novel, first-person narration, 85,000 words of fiction. But the architect's method is not limited to novels. Today, I want to show you how the same 7 stages apply to nonfiction. And I am going to use a book I recently completed as the example, Market Myths and Mathematical Realities, a 636 citation analysis of unscientific trading indicators. Same method, different genre, same results. Welcome back to the Architect's Method. I am Luigi Pascal Rondanini, and this is bonus episode 2, the method for nonfiction. Let me start with the core insight that makes the method transferable. In fiction, the protagonist transforms. They begin in one state and end in another. The entire architecture exists to support that transformation. In nonfiction, the reader transforms. They begin believing one thing and end believing another. The entire architecture exists to support that transformation. The reader is your protagonist. Once you understand this, the 7 stages map directly. Stage 1. Complete vision. In fiction, you ask, what does my protagonist want at the beginning? What do they discover? What choice do they face? Who do they become? In nonfiction, you ask the same questions about your reader. For Market Myths, here was my complete vision. What does the reader believe at the beginning? That market indicators might work, that patterns in the market can be exploited, that smart people have found ways to predict returns. What do they discover? That almost every indicator fails rigorous statistical testing, that human pattern recognition is systematically fooled by randomness, that the financial industry profits from selling false hope. What choice do they face? Accept the uncomfortable truth that prediction is fundamentally limited, or continue believing in comforting illusions. Who do they become? A skeptical, rigorous thinker who can evaluate any market claim independently. That is the complete vision, the reader's transformation from credulous to critical, from pattern seeker to pattern skeptic. I could see that transformation from beginning to end before I wrote a word. That is stage 1. Stage 2. Research mastery. In fiction, research serves the story. You gather what you need and no more. In nonfiction, research is the story. But the principle remains. Gather what serves the transformation, not everything that exists. For Market Myths, I categorized research into 3 tiers. Critical, peer-reviewed studies that directly test each indicator. Without these, I have no book. These are load-bearing. Authentic, historical data, statistical methods, background on cognitive biases. These give the argument credibility and depth. Enhancement, anecdotes, historical curiosities, entertaining examples. These add flavor but are not essential. I spent months in the critical tier before touching enhancement. 636 citations, each one verified, each one serving a specific argumentative function. Research mastery in nonfiction means knowing what evidence you need and stopping when you have it. The temptation is always to keep researching. The discipline is knowing when enough is enough. Stage 3. Architectural design. Here is where nonfiction differs most visibly from fiction. Instead of 4 acts, you have argument structure. But the underlying principle is identical: escalation. Each section must build on the previous. The reader's understanding must deepen continuously. No regression, no repetition. For Market Myths, I designed a 5-part architecture. Part 1. Foundations. Why do smart people believe dumb things? The psychology of pattern recognition. The statistical tools for testing claims. This establishes the framework the reader will use throughout. Part 2 through 4. The indicators. 14 indicators across 3 sections. Celestial indicators like moon phases and astrology. calendar indicators like the January effect and Halloween strategy, cultural indicators like hemlines and magazine covers. Each indicator receives the same rigorous treatment: historical track record, statistical analysis, theoretical plausibility, transaction cost assessment, verdict. Part 5. Synthesis. What does it all mean? Why do most indicators fail? What can we actually know about markets? This is the philosophical payoff. The architecture creates escalation through accumulation. Each failed indicator reinforces the central argument. By the time the reader reaches synthesis, they have seen 13 indicators collapse under scrutiny. The conclusion feels inevitable. That is, architectural design for nonfiction, not X, but argument, not plot points, but evidence points. Same principle of escalation. Stage 4. Character as function. In fiction, characters serve the protagonist's arc. Each one has a function: catalyst, mentor, obstacle, mirror. In nonfiction, examples and case studies serve the reader's arc. Each one has a function: illustration, proof, counter-argument, synthesis. For market myths, my characters were the indicators themselves. Each one needed to perform a specific function in the overall argument. The moon phase indicator demonstrates how even peer-reviewed research can find spurious correlations. The Super Bowl indicator shows how coincidence masquerades as causation. The Halloween effect, the exception that proves the rule, the one indicator that actually works, which makes the failure of the others more striking. I also had human characters, researchers whose work I cited, investors who believed in false patterns, my own journey down the rabbit hole. The opening section, How I Fell Down the Rabbit Hole, establishes me as a character, 37 years in finance, skeptical by nature. Yet I too was seduced by patent claims. If I can be fooled, so can anyone. That autobiographical element serves a function. It makes the reader trust me as a guide. I am not lecturing from above, I am confessing from alongside. Stage 5. Genre integration. Market myths blends 3 genres. Primary, academic analysis. Rigorous, evidence-based, citation-heavy. This owns the structure. Secondary, popular science. Accessible explanations of statistical concepts. Engaging prose. Readable by non-specialists. Tertiary, memoir. Personal voice, confessional moments, the author's journey. The genre hierarchy determines tone. When presenting evidence, I am academic. When explaining concepts, I am popular science. When reflecting on what it means, I am memoirist. If I had inverted this hierarchy, putting memoir first and evidence third, the book would have failed. It would have been an entertaining personal essay without the rigor to persuade. Genre integration in nonfiction means knowing which register to use when. The primary genre sets expectations. The secondary genres add texture. The balance must be consistent. Stage 6. Skeleton construction. In fiction, the skeleton is scene-by-scene blueprints: purpose, conflict, revelation, progression, hook. In nonfiction, the skeleton is section-by-section blueprints: claim, evidence, counter-argument, synthesis, transition. For each indicator chapter, I built a skeleton with 5 elements. The claim. What do believers say about this indicator? The evidence. What does the data actually show? The counter-argument. What would a defender say in response? The synthesis. What can we conclude? The transition. How does this connect to the next indicator? Every chapter followed this skeleton. The consistency created rhythm. Readers knew what to expect. The cumulative effect was persuasive. Skeleton construction in nonfiction means knowing exactly what each section must accomplish before you write it. The skeleton prevents drift. It prevents repetition. It ensures every section carries load. Stage 7. Disciplined execution. In fiction, disciplined execution means daily vision alignment. You begin each session by reciting the transformation statement. In nonfiction, the same principle applies. Before writing, I asked, how does this section advance the reader's transformation from credulous to critical? The drift log was essential. As I researched, I found fascinating tangents. The history of astrology in medieval markets, the psychology of professional forecasters, the mathematics of random walks. Each tangent went into the drift log. Interesting, but does it serve the transformation? If not, it stays in the log. It does not enter the manuscript. Market myth could have been twice as long. The drift log prevented that. Every section that made it into the final book earned its place by serving the reader's arc. Let me give you a concrete example of how the method shaped a specific chapter. Chapter 10. The Halloween Effect. Complete vision. This chapter must show the reader what a genuine pattern looks like, so they understand why the others fail. Research. Peer-reviewed studies documenting the effect. Statistical tests confirming significance. Possible explanations for why it works. Architecture. This chapter is the midpoint reversal. After 9 chapters of failure, here is success. The contrast is the point. Character function. The Halloween effect is the mentor character. It teaches the reader what real evidence looks like. Genre. Academic rigor at maximum here. This chapter must be bulletproof because it makes a positive claim. Skeleton. Claim, evidence, counter-argument, synthesis, transition. Same structure, but the synthesis is different. This one works. Execution. This chapter took the longest to write. Every sentence was tested. Can this be challenged? Is the evidence sufficient? Would a skeptical reader be convinced? The method shaped every decision. Without it, chapter 10 might have been buried in the middle, its significance lost. With the method, it became the structural hinge of the entire book. Here is what I want you to take from this episode. The architect's method is not a fiction method. It is a structure method. It applies wherever transformation is the goal. In nonfiction, the reader is your protagonist. Their transformation is your plot. Your evidence is your scenes. Your argument is your arc. The 7 stages translate directly. Complete vision. What does your reader believe at the start? What will they believe at the end? Research mastery. What evidence do you need to create that transformation? Architectural design. How does the argument escalate? Character as function. What role does each example play? Genre integration. What is your primary register? Skeleton construction. What must each section accomplish? Disciplined execution. Does every paragraph serve the transformation? Apply these stages to your nonfiction project. See the reader's journey before you write. Build the architecture that supports it. Execute with discipline. The method works because structure works. Genre is irrelevant. Transformation is everything. Next bonus episode. The Architect's Method for Poetry. We are going to compress the method to its smallest possible scale and show how even a single poem can have architectural integrity. Until then, build well.